So Bill McNeff joined the U.S. Army in 1955, where he received training in electronics and graduated in radar repair. He was cleared for top secret and worked in electronic countermeasures in conjunction with the NSA. Bill received a BSEE degree from the University of Nebraska in 1960. His background includes 40 years of work on various electronic and computer organizations, including Honeywell, Ceridian, and the Mayo Research Organization in Minnesota. He retired in 2000. He's been avidly interested in the subjects on the frontiers of science, including UFOs, since 1947. Bill served as state director for Minnesota MUFON for a number of years and is currently chief investigator. He's also a member of MUFON's Experiencer Resource Team, ERT. MUFON is the largest international UFO research organization. Bill's also an associate member of the Society for Scientific Exploration. He has investigated hundreds of UFO cases, has authored many articles on the subject, and has co-authored a book, Extraterrestrial Odyssey. So if you've been around Minnesota MUFON for a long time, I'm sure you know and love Bill like we all do. So let's turn it over now to Mr. Bill McNeff. Take it away, Bill.
Okay. This is about the 1968 Minot, North Dakota UFO incidents. I have a personal connection to this case. My brother-in-law was a security officer for Minot Air Force Base in 1968. My good friends and everyone in my family were aware of my keen interest in UFOs, including this brother-in-law. So when a group of very interesting UFO sightings occurred around Minot involving missile sites and a B-52, he gathered some important information for me. Minuteman missile sites listed, their nicknamed silos are scattered in a large semicircle around Minot Air Force Base. On the morning of October 24th, 1968, shortly before 2:30 a.m., a camper team at the Oscar 6 Minuteman silo saw a large glowing object and nearby, pardon me, I've got to kill my phone here. A nearby, they saw a large glowing object lying nearby. At 2:30 a.m., a missile maintenance team en route to the November 7th silo reported a light pacing their vehicle. When they arrived at November 7th, the UFO was circling to the south. And here, this shows the arrangement of missile silos, Minuteman missile silos, around Minot Air Force Base. Notice that there's some red letters. You probably can't read them on this screen, but it'll be a little easier. There are some red letters, which are the names, and here's the next slide, the names of airmen who sighted the UFO visually. Many of these silos are 35 or 40 miles from Minot Air Force Base. So, by the way, one of these names at the very top of the screen is Sergeant James Bond. It just happens to be his name. He was one of the airmen who saw the UFO. Pretty soon, facility security controllers in a 40-mile wide area were reporting sightings of an object. Personnel at 3 silos described seeing the object separate into 2 parts and return and pass under each other. A 1-2-man security team followed the object to within a half mile of where it landed. He said that the shape flew by itself, and later, I keep hearing some interference. Somebody out there, one of our listeners, has their mic unmuted. Please turn off your microphones.
I checked before. Okay.
At 3 a.m., a B-52 was returning to Minot Air Force Base from a 10-hour training mission. The base radar had picked up a UFO in the area. Ground controllers asked the crew to look at 1 o'clock for an orange glow. At 3:52, the controllers told the crew the UFO is being picked up by the weather radar also. Now, this takes a really large object to be picked up by weather radar. The B-52 radar picked up a large echo 3 miles away. At that point, the radar navigator turned on the radar scope camera, which automatically took a photo of the scope every 3 seconds. The UFO then closed the distance at a speed of at least 3,000 miles an hour, quickly decelerated, and was pacing the B-52. It was now about 1 mile away, perhaps 1.5 miles away. 2 UHF radios on the B-52 were unable to transmit during this close approach of the object. The object then faded from radar, indicating it had either moved above or below the radar beam. Shortly after that, the pilot was asked to abort the landing, and the B-52 was vectored by the base radar approach control to turn back and overfly a huge glowing object which had been reported at ground level. When the B-52 at an altitude of about 1,000 feet overflew the object, the co-pilot, Captain Bradford Runyon, saw the object and later made some sketches. Here is a photo. Here's a map made by an Air Force officer of the flight path of the B-52. At upper left is the B-52's initial landing approach. The path during the taking of the radar screen is outlined in black. After the request to circle back and fly over the area where the landed object had been reported, the point at which the crew saw the object is flagged, and the probable location of the landed UFO is shown by a rectangle. You can see it right there, if you can see my cursor. Actually, it probably was at this point here, right inside this curve. But the B-52 threw over the landed UFO at about 1,500 feet. Or 1,000 feet, excuse me. Co-pilot Bradford Runyon later made this sketch. Somebody's interfering on their, please turn off your microphone. Please turn off your microphone if it isn't muted. Mute your microphone, please. The main oval body, okay, Captain Bradford Runyon made this sketch of the UFO. The main oval body, which Runyon estimated was at least 200 feet in diameter, would make the UFO about 500 feet or more long. It is tempting to speculate that when the airmen at the silos saw the object separate into 2 parts, that the crescent part, the crescent shape, flew off by itself and later returned and docked with the main craft. I colorized Bradford Runyon's original sketch. I may have shown the egg-shaped part with too bright a color, which he described as dull red like molten lava. Runyon also drew a side view of this huge craft, which I also colorized. And this is what it looked like at a side view. You can see the yellow, green-yellow crescent part at the right. Once again, the B-52's radios, they had 2 radios, would not transmit during this close approach. The B-52 continued on and landed at 4:40 a.m. When checked later, the radios functioned perfectly. This is a good example of remote control by UFOs, as recorded in many other UFO cases. A little later, at 4:49 a.m., at the Oscar 7 silo, both the inner and outer alarms sounded. A security alert team was dispatched and discovered that the front gate had been unpadlocked and an access hatch was standing open, but they found no other evidence of intruders. Now, my brother-in-law told me that the two alarms had gone off, that the inner alarm was only supposed to sound if the concrete cap on the silo were disturbed. That cap weighs some, I forget, 20 or 40 tons. So here they're saying it was an access hatch, not the concrete cap, and I'm not sure which is the truth here. It's conceivable that when Project Blue Book released their files, that they altered this for some reason. This much of this information comes from the Blue Book files in the National Archives. Of note is that the Air Force investigation that followed these incidents, in this investigation, the Blue Book investigators did not interview the B-52 crew members during the official investigation. Now, there were 18 men on the ground that saw this, and then the pilot and co-pilot of the B-52 and some other airmen who were in the cockpit area. One of these airmen said something like, you know, I can't see this. I'm going to interview Alpha Airlines tomorrow for a pilot position. And he went below where he wouldn't see the thing. So he could deny that he had seen a UFO. That gives you an example of how the ridicule that the government fostered about UFOs was really putting the damper on people talking about it. Anyway, Project Blue Book was really a public relations gambit. And the investigators of this Minot incident were looking for all possibilities of explaining these reports. And I should say the investigators for any UFO incident that was reported, they were looking for all possibilities of explaining these reports away, other than the obvious, which is advanced flying craft from who knows where was being reported. This case has a wealth of evidence, including a dozen scope photos which show the UFO blip. In one case, the blip is larger than a KC-47 tanker, the big tanker. I can't remember the number for sure. But I don't have the copies of the radar screens on this computer, so I can't show you those. I probably would not be that interesting to you anyway, but it's good evidence that there was an object there. So this case has a wealth of evidence, including an object that was visible simultaneously on 3 different radar sets. And then we have the B-52 radar scope photos, multiple electronic effects where the 2 radios wouldn't operate, sophisticated opening of high security locks on the missile silo, and documented visual sightings by multiple personnel, 18 personnel on the ground, who were responsible for the nuclear defense of the United States. All of these observers were responsible for the nuclear defense of the United States. And there was about 100 pages on microfilm about this case in the National Archives. It was one of the better documented cases. The Air Force never explained these incidents satisfactorily. The only approach to an explanation in the Project Blue Book files is possible plasma. This is not a good explanation from the electrical standpoint, because plasma, like many natural phenomena, also known as ball lightning, assumes a spherical form when it's unrestrained and just out in the open. It does not have an egg shape with a silvery tube bearing a yellow-green glowing crescent extending from one end. To me, the most logical theory is that some of these UFOs are craft built by extraterrestrial aliens. The recorded performance capabilities of these craft far exceeded those of man-made craft beginning in the 1940s and later. And in many cases, it still has not been matched by humans as far as we know. These capabilities point to technology so far advanced as to make it extremely desirable to advanced nations on Earth. But any country that believes some UFOs have high technology would be wise to keep this a secret to prevent it from falling into unfriendly hands. Crashes of UFOs especially should be kept secret as long as possible. This meant keeping UFOs a secret even from the armed forces, including the Air Force. Unfortunately, this resulted in a number of incidents, including crashes. Okay, I see now it's 10 after, well, it's not quite 10 after 4. I originally felt that my Minot presentation didn't have as many slides as I wanted. I couldn't find my longer presentation. And so I decided to add a little bit more about the Roswell case, some two aspects of it, which I'm one of the few people who were privy to it. And probably none of you have heard this before. It's possible that some of you older timers have, but anyway, first, there was a document that appeared in the MUFON Journal a few years ago called 47 pages from the DIA. Why should we care? Well, DIA, of course, is Defense Intelligence Agency. And in the December 2018 issue of the MUFON Journal, there was an article with the above title. It tells how in June of 2017, Heather Wade, former host of the Midnight in the Desert radio show, received a copy of a document by email from an unknown source and shared it with MUFON. It purports to be a briefing paper for a new incoming member of the MJ-12 group. This document has been studied by some experts who have found nothing to disprove its authenticity. In fact, MUFON's John Schuessler recognized the signature of a former professor of his as a recipient of this briefing document. In other words, his former professor was being inducted into MJ-12. This document agrees with the correlated picture of the UFO situation I've built up over 40 years. I have, over 70 years, I should say. I have high confidence that the DIA document is accurate and is genuine. This document, this MJ-12 briefing document, states that the July 1947 Roswell crash was of an extraterrestrial craft, and that the 4 occupants didn't survive the crash. A crash of another craft followed in March 1948 near Aztec, New Mexico. Several beings appearing to be human, including children, were found on board the crashed craft, but these were in suspended animation at a low temperature. Of these, 3 babies and 1 adult, a male, were successfully revived. The adult was found to speak perfect English with a slight accent. Conversations with this ET were held over an 11-month period with various interrogators. The document has a condensation, that's the 47 pages from the DIA, has a condensation of several conversations with the ET, whom they termed an extrabiological entity, or EBE, in the paper. These conversations cover 7 pages, so I can only give you a taste of them here. I'll preface each question with Q for questioner. Question: why are you here? ET: specifically to bring you these children. and we like trees. Q, would you mind expanding on that? Certainly. In what direction? You see, we would hate to see you blow up such a pretty little planet, to ruin so many nice trees. If you only knew how hard it is to make a tree from scratch. People are easy. They follow naturally, but not without trees, of course. Green things must be respected above all else except children, and are very much alike. Q, what are the intentions of your government by sending you here? Who sent you here and why? If this isn't the first time, evidenced by your familiarity with English, why haven't these been official contacts? Why haven't there been official contacts made? Well, in reverse order, my answers are what and be strung up from one of those beautiful trees. Why? Because you sent us an invitation we could not resist for our own curiosity as well as safety. And we sent ourselves, or I volunteered, take your pick, and we have no government. I don't understand. E.T., I know that. Try laughing. You will still not understand, but you will feel better about your ignorance. The E.T. went on to explain that famed inventor, engineer Nikola Tesla sent a signal in 1899 that humans should not have been capable of sending. Here are a couple of paragraphs from Wikipedia which tell what Tesla did and also the result. Colorado Springs. There, Tesla conducted experiments with a large coil operating in the megavolts range, producing artificial lightning and thunder, consisting of millions of volts and up to 135 feet long discharges, and at one point inadvertently burned out the generator in El Paso, causing a power outage. See the next page. Credit from to Wikipedia. For this final experiment, Tesla discharged a high voltage pulse into a 60-foot tall copper mast every 1500ths of a second, the time it takes a radio wave to go around the Earth. The wave from the antenna went around the Earth and came back to the antenna, producing a voltage in it at the same time that Tesla discharged the next voltage, in effect almost doubling the voltage. Soon, large sparks were jumping off the top of the mast, which built up into lightning bolts. Tesla was dancing for joy as the bolts grew bigger and bigger when suddenly the power went out. Tesla immediately called the El Paso power station and shouted at them, "Why did you cut my power?" The reply was, "Mr. Tesla, we didn't cut your power. You burned out our generator." During his time at this laboratory, Tesla observed unusual signals from his receiver, which he speculated to be communications from another planet. He mentioned them in a letter to a reporter in December 1899 and to the Red Cross Society in December 1900. Reporters treated it as a sensational story and jumped to the conclusion Tesla was hearing signals from Mars. And I'll credit Wikipedia for this. Tesla expanded on the signals he heard in a 9th February 1901 Collier's Weekly article, Talking with Planets, where he said it had not been immediately apparent to him that he was hearing intelligently controlled signals and that the signals could come from Mars, Venus, or other planets. End of Wikipedia quote. The briefing document made it plain that while the ETs have been visiting this planet for thousands of years, their home on a large spacecraft was at a great distance from the Earth in 1899. That's when they received Tesla's signal. The ET sent a reply immediately, which Tesla received. So they had to be able to send a reply possibly faster than the speed of light. We don't know about that for sure. But Tesla received this reply, and the Wikipedia story tells about it. And per the ET, they sent a message to Marconi also, which he recognized as extraterrestrial. That's also recorded historically. But the ETs got no reply from Marconi or Tesla, and the signal that Tesla sent, unknown to Tesla, had generated a form of energy which caused big problems on some distant planets. So the ETs decided to visit Earth again, but they were at such a distance that it took 22 years. They arrived in 1922. Since they are long-lived and often travel in cryogenic suspension, time and distance and space distance is no problem. The ET explained that his people has visited Earth before, but that humans had forgotten this. And again, from the 47 pages of the DIA, question for the ET, I don't see how we could forget you. Are you serious? And the ET replies, very seldom. But yes, your culture, which now dominates this civilization, did forget us. Actually, your people seem to have undergone a period of history in which you were so afraid of old truths that you erased them. Some of your people remembered us orally in their legends, such as those who speak the Kueo or the Narragansett or the Athapascan dialects. They lived where we last visited. Questioner, I've never heard of them. ET, not surprising. Your history shows that the conquerors seldom preserve any history of their victims. I speak of the natives in your land mass, those called Indians, mostly on your eastern and southern borders, and in the ribbon of land that connects you to the southern continent. Navajo, Aztecs, Incas, the Olmecs, and the Toltec cultures. These were all greater than your own civilization at a time when you were burning witches. Of course, you drove the Native Americans mad and destroyed them with venereal diseases and smallpoxes, those that you didn't slaughter for their gold. Oh, E.T., and your social pundits speculate and joke about why we don't land in front of your nation's Capitol buildings and shake hands. We are not insane. Q, but we have changed. Western civilization is now the leader in this world for freedom and humanity. E.T., two things. First, we believe that, or we wouldn't be here. Also, tell that to the millions of Hebrews your Western civilization has destroyed in the last decade, the 1940s, or the millions of Negro families whose sons died to stop the madman Hitler, but who do not have plumbing in their homes. Yes, you make progress. That is hopeful for you. Here's another quote from the ET. We write poems and express ourselves with works of art just as you do. Many of the greatest works of construction on your world were inspired by a joyful effort of our people and yours in your distant past. We leave these wherever we go, and you romantic creatures have tried for many generations to explain why such huge monuments to human engineering were ever built in the first place. The upshot of these and other discussions with the ETs is that, per the briefing document, a treaty was drafted by the MJ-12 Directorate and a joint committee of extraterrestrial visitors, plus representatives of the U.S. Diplomatic Corps. It was signed at Kirtland Air Force Base, Texas, on July 18, 1954, by President Dwight D. Eisenhower and an individual on behalf of the ETs. It reads, insofar as no threat, either implied nor expressed, and either of a military, civil, or societal nature, has been forwarded by the visitation of the Association of Visiting Extraterrestrials against the governments and the peoples of these United States of America, and insofar as great and many cultural, technical advances have been derived by such exchange, we hereby grant full, complete diplomatic status and recognition to these individuals from beyond our world. Furthermore, let it be known that we seek to provide shelter, comfort, and aid in all their peaceful endeavors, so far as these are respective of the laws of our land and the right to self-determination and free will expressed in our national constitution. And until such time as the objectives or methods of either parties in this agreement shall deem otherwise, this bond between our people shall remain in effect. Between MUFON and other organizations, there are hundreds of thousands of vetted UFO reports on record. Common characteristics are high maneuverability, extreme acceleration and speed, seeming to defy physical laws, but often with no sound or only low sounds. I've developed a correlated picture of the UFO situation based on a lifetime of study. In the case of UFOs, there are massive amounts of evidence available, and the probability is very high based on this evidence that many of the objects we're dealing with are craft of an unconventional and extraterrestrial nature and under intelligent control. The intelligent beings in control of these craft are of a wide variety. Patrick Haig, in his book Field Guide to the Extraterrestrials, documents about 50 different species or races. The reasons ET aliens visit us would be expected to vary with each particular race or species. The 47-page MJ-12 briefing document indicates that one goal shared by many of these races is to discourage violent, misbehaving races from going into space. We are presently such a race. Genetic efforts to reduce or eliminate our violent nature may be ongoing. Telepathic abilities said to be possessed by many ETs could increase our sympathy and understanding of our fellow beings, earthly and extraterrestrial. And now to a new account of the Roswell crash. A man called me a few years ago from Edina with a story. He had been told by a woman he met at a dollar store in July 1947 at the Roswell-based newspaper office. This woman, then a reporter photographer, was alerted by coworkers that something was going on at the base hospital. She rushed down to the hospital, went in, and found several small bodies in the intake room on gurneys. They looked like large dolls, she said. She started taking photos when an officer came in. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm taking photos," she said. The officer told her, "You can't do that." "Why not? I have a top secret clearance." "That's not enough. That's not high enough," he said. He took her camera and ordered her to leave and not to say a word about it. This woman lived in the York Towers in Edina, and I called her about this incident. She did not deny it, but said she had now learned that it was still classified and she would say no more. She asked me not to call her about this again, and so I agreed to do that. A story was told by the local Roswell undertaker, Glenn Dennis. This is more public knowledge. But after being sworn to secrecy, base doctors and a nurse were ordered to perform an autopsy on at least one of the bodies. The nurse was a friend of Dennis. The next day, she phoned Dennis and asked to meet with him. She told him about the events and drew a sketch of the head and hands of one of the bodies of the aliens on a napkin. Here's the drawings by Glenn Dennis based on sketches by his nurse friend. The nurse's sketch shows two views of the head of one of the Roswell aliens. These are different from the 47 pages alien, which was outwardly indistinguishable from humans, because this alien's hand lacks a thumb and had a grouping of what appeared to be suction cups on each fingertip. This suggests a humanoid evolving from perhaps an amphibious creature similar to earthly tree frogs. A few years ago, Bob Schultz and I interviewed Ralph Anderson, a former dean of then Northwestern College in Roswell. Anderson told us, and this was all videotaped at a public television station. Anderson told us that he was stationed at the Roswell Army Air Force Base in July of 1947. On a Saturday early in July, an announcement came over the speaker system ordering all in the barracks to fall out, exit the barracks. Outside, they were told that there had been a crash and they asked for volunteers to help clean up the wreckage. The volunteers, which included Anderson, were ordered to form a line. The officer had them count off 60 men, which was the number they wanted to clean up the wreckage. They missed Anderson by only 2 men, so he stayed behind in the barracks. But he was there when the cleanup crew came back at the end of the day. Against orders, some of the men had secreted small pieces of the wreckage in their pockets. Anderson especially remembers one piece which looked like an ordinary foil, but when squeezed into a ball and set down on a flat surface, would uncrumple itself until it was perfectly flat again with no crease lines. When this foil was placed on a wooden footlocker and struck with the sharp edge of a maul, it would crease, but then iron itself out again and be perfectly flat. And it certainly wasn't cut by the maul. Under Colonel Blanchard's orders, Major Marcel prepared a press release saying the Roswell Army Airfield had in their possession a flying saucer. He gave this to Lieutenant Walter Haught at noon to carry over to the Roswell Daily Record, who ran it in their evening edition as a front page story. Then, Anderson said, Blanchard changed his mind and released a story that the wreckage was only a weather balloon. Anderson recognizes General Roger Ramey as the source of Blanchard's change of mind. Under Colonel Blanchard's orders, back on the base, per Dean Anderson, the airmen who had cleaned up the site were ordered to hand over all pieces of the crash debris under threat of imprisonment. As far as Anderson knows, everyone complied. Obviously, a cover-up was in full swing. The government military cover-up was effective. The press and public, all over the U.S., accepted the weather balloon explanation, including me. I heard it over the radio at the time. And the saucer crash story seemed to be over. But the Roswell crash story was not over. In 1950, Frank Scully published his book, Behind the Flying Saucers. This told of a crash near Aztec, New Mexico, and caused new interest in the Roswell crash. Others began to investigate. At present, per Donald V. Schmidt, over 1,000 witnesses to Roswell have been located. It is one of the best documented cases. So that ends my formal presentation, and I'm open to questions.
Of course, you can put questions in the chat. I think we got a question from up here, or no? Any questions in the room? And we're checking the chat. Oh, they're questioning the 1,000 witnesses that you had on the screen, Bill?
Was that a question?
Yeah, they were questioning the 1,000 witnesses you had listed on the screen. Oh, I guess you're just commenting.
Ah,
The
you're,
source of the J12 documents we were talking about.
47 pages.
Did you hear that, Bill?
no, what's the question?
Where was the source of the MJ-12 documents you were referring to?
The source was Heather Wade, received photocopies of an alleged microfilm, and of course she printed them and then gave them. She gave this to MUFON. So it's a leaked document. It's alleged. It itself alleges to be a secret document, which has been leaked, and you can't absolutely prove whether it's genuine or not. But John Schuessler believes that it is, and I think John has some pretty good grounds since he recognized his former professor's signature on this document. And his former professor was a person with some technical knowledge that would have been very useful to the MJ-12, to the Majestic 12 group, as far as studying these craft and learning about their technology.
Eric, ask where we can find that 47-page document.
Is there somebody, is there somewhere where we can find this 47-page document?
Repeat the question for me, please.
Is there somewhere we can find this document to review it?
Sorry, there's somebody with an unmuted mic was talking while you were asking. Tom, can you?
Yeah, is there some
relay
place
the
where you can
question?
find the 47-page document?
Yes. Do a Google search for 47 pages from the DIA. Also, the only way you can get it now is the so-called Internet Archives. You probably need a special link for that. You might be able to Google it though and get it. 47 pages from the DIA. That's what you need to Google. Now, when you get it, it will be photographs of the original microfilm. And these are hard to read in some cases. John Schuessler spent a long time reading this and transcribing it. And some of the words he was not able to read. I actually was able to read one of the words he wasn't able to read. One of the final words quoted from this ET was, "We hope to meet you, human beings, someday." I'm quoting this loosely. "We hope to meet you, humans, someday, as friends and equals." Any more questions?
No.
Nope, not seeing any more, Bill.
Okay.
Wait, hang on, maybe, wait, we got one more question.
Whatever happened to the ET?
Yeah, whatever happened to the EDE?
Oh, the EBA, about a year and a half after he was captured, he was allowed to rejoin his people. There was a meeting somewhere in the Southwest where there was a craft landing and he was taken back, I believe. Anyway, that's what happened. He was allowed to join his companions.
So, Bill, do we know what happened to the children that was found with the EVE?
No, we don't know, except one of the scientists asked him, "What should we do with these babies?" And the ET replied, "Raise them. They were intended for Earth. Raise them well. We have no patience with people who do not raise their children well." So my guess is that they were given false papers, were adopted by these scientists or somebody in these scientists' families, and some of them may be walking among us to this day because we're talking about 1948. The ET said we would have a rich harvest from these 3 babies. So he expected great things from these grown-up humans. He said they were humans in all respect.
Well, it sounds like we've got no more questions. So, Bill, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I always appreciate your presentations. Let's give Bill McNeff a big round of applause, everybody. And you guys online, you can do your applause too with the little clip button on there, your reaction button. So cool. Thank you, Bill. Thank you very much. So it looks like that's gonna wrap us up for our meeting this month. We'll be back again on a second Saturday of February for another again, What's Up in Minnesota, and hearing from Russ Kellett, and hopefully we'll have all of our little technical problems figured out and stuff by then. So thank you all for coming out. Appreciate having you here. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Until next time, everybody, keep your eyes on the skies, and we are out of here. Bye-bye. Talking to you.